Hey, what is immortals? It is TCCrew here, and welcome to part 14 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. It was just like All Might said, or close to it anyway, if he understood correctly. He didn't truly understand the depth of his quirk. What could it truly do? Well, Midoriya was about to find out right now, running through Mustafu City in a funeral suit that was completely drenched in the rain. The air was humid and cool from the rain, but bore a tinge of heat from all the explosions and fires breaking out in the city caused by the rampaging Nomus. Normally he'd rush to those sites to combat whatever lay wait, but he had more pressing matters at hand. Stain. At least that's what he led himself to believe. He felt he had to be the one to bring the villain down himself, but a part of him tormented him with the fact that he was using this as an escape from the Nomus. His trauma was still very much real, and triggering at a time like this wasn't an option. Beside him, trailing diligently, was the heterochromatic boy, Todoroki. He had volunteered himself to come along with Midoriya. Unlike the latter, Todoroki didn't have an aversion to fighting the Nomu. He felt guilty. The boy had been in the area the night Ida confronted Stain. If he had been more involved with his classmates, he might have been able to do something about it. The guilt was eating him up, and way to ease it was to put Stain behind bars. Stain was long gone as far as Todoroki could see. The rain and cold weren't helping matters either, but he trusted Midoriya and his quirk. If anyone could find Stain, it was him. With his eyes, Midoriya began to focus. He could easily see past the buildings and obstructions like his eyes had infrared. The world dyed red. With his eyes, clarity was like 10,000 pixels, but what he had to do was to pick Stain out of the numerous energy signatures he saw. The way he saw people like glowing red energy. Everyone looked alike, but possessed a specific amount or a ferocity to their energy. It was like different places of heartbeats. Stain's signature was burned into his memory, and what's more, he was carrying Tensei as luggage. Technically, one would think it'd be easy to pick them out, but it wasn't. This was something Midori hadn't tried before. There was too much information his eyes were taking in, and homing in on one would require concentration he had never used before. Have you found them? Todoroki asked Midoriya in a calm tone, but Midoriya sensed the impatience interlaced with his words. Time was running out, and if Midoriya didn't do something soon, Tensei would be in trouble. He didn't answer Todoroki. Rather, he shut his eyes and stopped running. He began to picture Stain and Tensei's signatures within his mind. He focused hard, seemingly shutting off the other functions of his senses. He couldn't hear the pitter-patter of the rain, not feel the cold droplets sticking in his hair to his face, neither his damp clothes. Just his eyes were working hand in hand with his brain. Todoroki stood beside him, silent, not wanting to break his concentration. Then he sharply opened his eyes. Everything seemed to slow down and speed up all at once. With the image in mind, his eyes began to scan and process each signature it saw, relating its mental image of Stain and Tensei's. His vision plunged further, trying to make a match at great speed, till he found a match. In an alleyway, Stain's signature towered over the signature of Tensei, who was sprawling on the ground. Not good. I found him, but we have to move fast. Let's go! Midoriya yelled to Todoroki. He was glad he'd located them, but also scared they wouldn't make it in time after that stunt he just pulled. He was feeling lightheaded, and immense pain seared his eyes and brain. Something told him it had to do with One for All. It seemed the quirk he'd acquired was accelerating and strengthening his own quirk passively, even while it was not in use. A probable reason he was able to pull off something like this that he wouldn't dream of before. It was an upside, but the strain he felt now wasn't. He managed to clench his teeth and put it aside to focus on what he had to do. Midoriya deactivated his quirk and activated One for All, coursing its power through his body. A mild 7% he could handle since training with All Might. Green sparks of energy discharged around him as he grabbed Todoroki and threw him on his back. Leaping off the ground, he scaled up two buildings, leaping from one to another and onto the rooftop. Dashing off rooftops skillfully, he made his way towards Stain's location as fast as he could. You killed Tenya! I'll never forgive you! Tensei said through grit teeth, struggling to get off the ground. He was still too weak from the injuries he sustained from their previous encounter. The villain was in a hurry. He could have taken Tensei out there, but he knew that with all those heroes gathered, he wouldn't go far, especially with All Might there, which was why he took the chance to flee with Tensei once All Might was out of sight. Now Stain would aim to kill him swiftly and plan his escape. He couldn't rely on Shigaraki for help. The vigilante fluidly withdrew his blade, aiming to arc it across the neck of Tensei. You and your brother were too unworthy to be called heroes, which is why you must be removed like stains you are. Stain said, sparing little banter before his muscles tensed with his blade in hand to deliver the blow. A yell erupted from Midoriya above Stain, startling the villain. The boys dropped into the alley. Todoroki lifted off his back and released the ice wave that deterred Stain and made him leap away from Tensei. Midoriya landed beside Tensei, checking up on him. Are you alright? Midori asked, concerned. This was a tricky one. He and Todoroki were without their gear. It was raining, and they had to keep Tensei secure while battling off Stain. Todoroki held Stain's attention for the time being, furiously throwing waves of ice at the villain, sometimes fire. It gave Midori time to prop Tensei up against the wall. Just before he left to assist Todoroki, Tensei grabbed his arm. Take him down, for Tenya, Tensei said weakly with tears flowing down his face, accompanied by the raindrops. Fighting back tears of his own, Midoriya gave a strong nod. Midoriya deactivated One for All and activated his Sharingan. It was time. Todoroki has been able to keep Stain at bay until the villain came in close range and cut him, leaving him paralyzed. Just as Stain was about to slash Todoroki's throat, Midoriya yanked the boy back, sending him tumbling to the ground. He'd heard of Stain's quirk from the news. He had to avoid the villain's blade. It's you and me now! Midoriya yelled, rushing towards Stain. Stain threw a straight thrust with his blade, aiming to tear into Midoriya's liver. Midoriya saw the attack coming, reading the slightest contractions in Stain's muscle movement. He rolled to his left away from the blade. Remembering some of the body movements he'd studied off Izawa, Midoriya spun his right leg, sweeping across the ground, aiming to get Stain off his feet, his body turning as well to face Stain as he did. Stain leapt above his leg, clenching his katana with the grip of both his hands, coming down powerfully to slash across Midoriya's chest. The boy did a back roll, kicking back off the wet ground, rolling out of harm's way as he maintained his position on one knee, trying to establish eye contact with Stain. But the rain, or Stain's killing intent, probably distracted him from looking Midoriya straight in the eye. Stain took 2 sharp steps forward with a diagonal slash to Midoriya. Midoriya leaned backwards away from the blade's length. With the enhanced reflexes and speed from his quirk, he could keep up with Stain. Midoriya stood up straight, pushing out deep breaths from his mouth as he calmed himself with his palms open, ready to spring into action. After Ida's death, he'd been watching a martial arts movie with his quirk active. At the time, he did it to see the movie clearer, but he was passively studying and absorbing each and every movement the film had to offer. Now was paying off here, as his body was mimicking those movements now. Stain hacked his blade sideways to lock off Midoriya's head. Midoriya swiveled under the attack, driving his open palm into Stain's gut, driving air from the villain's lungs. Stain took a reverse, trying to hit Midoriya with the back of the blade, but the boy grabbed Stain's arm with his right hand, subtly and simultaneously with his left. He retracted a knife from Stain's holster strapped to his leg, and then, gripping Stain's arm tighter, he took it over his shoulder and tugged hard, bending his upper body as he did. Midoriya tossed Stain to the wet ground. Midoriya's heart pounded hard. He hadn't thought he could pull that off, even with his quirk, but he had, and now he had a knife to counter Stain's blade, or so he thought. Stain rose quickly, turning to Midoriya, and like a flash, he was in front of Midoriya. Midoriya thought he had gotten the villain's speed figured out, but apparently he had only scratched the surface. He couldn't trace or even follow the villain's movement. Stain had retracted his knife, strapped to his other leg, and drove it straight at Midoriya. If not for the fact he brandished the blade he'd stolen across his chest, Midoriya would be dead by now. The knife pierced into the right hand, tearing flesh and cracking bone. Torn vessels let out torrents of crimson blood as Stain held a firm grip on the knife tightly. Midoriya screamed in pain, his voice resonating out the walls of the alley. In an instant his legs felt weak, and his chest felt hot. His arm felt like it had been through a meat processor. Blood from his wound ran down the length of the knife still in his flesh up to the hilt, and Stain licked off the blood from the metal. Game over, he said, staring Midoriya right in the eyes. The boy felt paralyzed, shackled by the weight of Stain's quirk. Then, with his katana in his other hand, Stain proceeded to slash off Midoriya's head cleanly, blood spewing from several arteries. The villain saw the blood slump to the ground in satisfaction as he moved over to finish off the rest. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we have the third channel called Weed Celestial Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I would like to extend an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being, we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, we're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and have a great day.